YouTube, welcome in. I'm X, here with RoCstar
What up?
and Austin.
How's it going?
Uh, for the first episode of X's Squad Talk Show, where we're going to be all coming up with topics, and we're going to be talking about those topics, obviously. And those topics will be football and wrestling related. So this week we have three topics in mind: Randy Moss or Jerry Rice. Who is wide receiver number one as the greatest of all time? Topic number two would be what is the biggest what if when it comes to medically retired players in the NFL? And topic three, which do we prefer? Traditional Survivor Series matches or war games? So we're going to start off with uh, the medically retired players. And I'm gonna head it over to Austin first to see because it is his topic, so he can start off. And who have you decided is going to be the biggest what if when it comes to medically retired players in the NFL?
Well, I feel like the most obvious choice was, of course, going to be Bo Jackson. However, I am a homer to my core, so I have to go with the one and only Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley did an incredible job of elevating the Rams offense during the early McVay years, basically carried them to the Super Bowl in 2017. And it was only due to his injury as one of the main factors for why the Rams didn't end up winning that. Not only for his performance on the Rams, but Todd Gurley did so much to define the way contracts are handled now for running backs. It was the fact that Todd Gurley was given this huge contract extension by the Rams for several years and millions of dollars, and then his knees were basically Thanos snapped out of existence. And that was a huge moment for modern running backs being looked at by teams as, is this guy going to be a long-term solution for us, or is this guy going to be out with injury and we're going to have millions in dead cap when he's only able to play one or two of the 5 years that we're extending them for? Uh, so for me, the reason that it's such a huge what if is you look at Todd Gurley and you say if he kept playing at that level or close to it for the Rams or wherever he ended up afterwards, uh, how would this affect not only the Rams as a franchise, but the running back market in general? There's a very good chance that you would see guys like Saquon Barkley still being on the Giants because they wouldn't be afraid to pay him that big money that he had earned. And he wouldn't have ended up going to the Eagles. And that's only the most recent example. I think that's, for me, the biggest what if of the modern era, at least when it comes to a player being forced to medically retire.
All right, I agree with that. Gurley did end up going to another team though, didn't he? I think he went to another team for like a year or
Uh,
two.
that is correct. After 4 years with the Los Angeles Rams, he spent one season with the Atlanta Falcons.
One season with the Falcons. Okay. Um, it's a great argument for Todd Gurley. Um, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I didn't know any of the backstory with the contract negotiations. Um, Rockstar, you got anything to say about that one?
Well, it was just funny that you mentioned Bo Jackson because whenever I had first heard the question, I thought, yeah, that's the easy one. I'm going to go with it. But then here recently, there's been a injury that's taken place that I feel is going to be very impactful, and that is the Tyreek Hill injury. That knee injury was gruesome. And, it's going to suck just because, he is over 30 now. So therefore, he is past his prime. A knee injury like that, they're basically going to be rebuilding his entire, knee area the way that snapped that it is going to be very effective for the Dolphins here in the future. if they do decide to re-sign him to another year after his recovery to see how he does, or whether or not he's just going to end out on the open market and maybe get picked up for a year by somebody, to see if he has what it takes. But to me, I feel that for him, his injury was just very bad because to me, he was in his prime last year and this year. Like he carried Miami to, you know, even though they had pretty crappy records, he was what the team had.
Yeah, Miami had him, Waddle, and Achan. Um, but yeah, Tyreek Hill definitely, in my opinion, at least one of the at least top 10 wide receivers in the past like 5 years. Uh, Me personally, I thought about Phil Jackson. I never thought about Tyreek Hill as a what if. Oh, excuse me. I went through and I ended up going through and looking at people who had brain injuries, like the concussions. Merrill Hodge came to mind, Al Toon, even Chris Henry came to my mind because he passed away early in his career. Same thing with Marshawn Nealon or even Jordan Travis, I think his name was the backup quarterback for the Jets who had to retire recently due to injuries. But I'm actually going to go with Javid Best, running back out of California. Um, he spent only 2 years in the NFL. Had to medically retire at the age of 24. Uh, he only had 22 total games, 945 yards, but his average of 3.7 yards per carry. I mean, that's pretty good. 6 touchdowns in 22 games. That's pretty good. I feel like if he had the chance to go further in his career, he could have been up there with people like Barry or Saquon or Gurley or Emmett Smith even. I guess I'll name drop him too. Um, but luckily for Javid Best, though, he did end up going and running in the Olympics. He didn't do anything, but he did end up going to the Olympics. Um, so yeah, Javid Best has got to be my biggest what if, just because it's such a short amount of a short career.
I think Best is a phenomenal choice right there. You look at the numbers that he put up in college, taking a California team and actually making them look decent with, as you mentioned, the yards per carry on average, but also the fact that he was putting up, 800, 1,500 yards per season was absolutely wild. And he's one of those guys that you look at that you think now, with the advances in technology for helmets, for player safety, for medical advancements. If this man had a Guardian cap, there's a very good chance that he'd still be playing and still be putting up really good numbers, or at least he would have going into the 2020s.
Yeah, we would be laughing at the Guardian cap itself, but I mean, it
I
looks
mean, it
funny.
is
It
goofy.
it makes sense, but it looks funny. Yeah, but yeah, even in college, he had set records for most all-purpose yards and most rushing yards in the season for uh for the California Bears, Golden Bears. So
Yeah,
that's
I had forgotten about Best, but yeah, he who'd he play for? He was with the Vikings,
He
Detroit.
was a Detroit Lion.
Detroit Lion. That's right.
Like I also went through and like yes, I sort of remember Merrill Hodge. I sort of remember Altoon. I definitely remember Javed Best. So that helped me be like, okay, yeah, I remember him being really good because he kind of was. Well, he was on the verge of being very good. But
Man, I want to flip this. We'll just go sort of. off the rail on this real quick. Which wrestler career-ending injury do you think was most impactful?
Without being too controversial, I want to say
Oh God.
Mr. Chris. Without being too controversial, he had a great wrestling career. Horrible human being, horrible what he did. His wrestling career was amazing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And I will move it on to Austin.
Now, this is going to sound crazy because this man did end up coming back and having arguably an even better run at the tail end of his career as he's doing currently. But for me, it would have to be Daniel Bryan, simply because the trajectory that he was on before his initial forced medical retirement, the man was world champion. The man was had the crowd behind him to such an extent that it forced WWE's hand into putting him into the main event of WrestleMania and then eventually into giving him the title. This guy had the crowd behind him to such a degree that you have to wonder if his momentum weren't stopped in such a catastrophic and unfortunate way. He would inarguably, in my opinion, be on the level of guys like a John Cena nowadays.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, whatever you want to call him. And but then since Austin sort of went with that one, I'll go with Edge because Adam Copeland, his recovery, he did the same thing as far as being able to return from a quote unquote career ending injury. And, to me, I don't, want to speak badly about Daniel Bryan, but he did return and then has since retired again. And, the same with Adam Copeland, retired, got medically cleared, came back. And I can't say that I've really been the biggest fan of his in AEW. I'm really hoping that they get a real strong Christian and him run before he does retire again, just due to age or spend time with his wife and get away from the industry.
Yeah, Daniel Bryan coming back. I was never a big Daniel Bryan guy, so I didn't care that much. Although, for me, like for Daniel Bryan, I got to put him down a little bit because I don't know why he ended up leaving WWE. Like when he came back, I mean, I understand it took him
But
what,
the first
like
time
10 years.
or the,
It
well,
took
you're
him.
talking about the first time when they fired him?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
When he left to go to AEW, because when they medically cleared him to come back, they gave him a title run. It was a really good title run too. Um, and like they gave him main events, and uh, he even he even weaseled his way into a triple threat match between Edge and Roman Reigns. But then I don't know. I don't know personally why he left. I feel like they were doing a good job with him. I don't know if he left because of that or he just wanted to try something different. But as far as
I
Edge
to
goes,
me, I
oh,
And see,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Austin.
that that is a big part of it. Is Daniel Bryan is a great example of somebody that he does it for the love of the game.
right.
Uh, I don't think the man cares much about titles or about records or any of that. The man wants to go on and put on matches that he loves, that he thinks are going to show wrestling as an art form that's elevated above TV nonsense, which is a bit hoity-toity for me, I'll admit, but I think that at the end of the day, he wasn't as concerned with the money or the championships. I think that he wanted to really wrestle and get back to his roots as doing, the bingo halls and the the more insane, like just technical masterpieces, you could say in a lot of cases, as he did early in his career.
Yeah,
Yep.
I feel it was more just the sort of the handcuffs that were put on him by WWE just because of his previous injuries to where they weren't allowing him to do some of the stuff that he had did before, which was probably the best move just to help prevent further injuries from taking place. But, it's kind of like if you're somebody that's used to mailing your check to make your payments each month and someone tries to talk you into signing up for auto pay, well, now that's not the way that I'm used to doing it. So even though it might be what's best for me because I'm getting older and forgetting about stuff, it's not what I want to hear.
Right. And yeah, Daniel Bryan, doing the out of pocket, not the right words, but like wanting to do his own thing, facing new people and stuff. That's why he fought people like Drew Gulak and all them during his final run in WWE. That makes sense.
And I will say also on the note of WWE putting those limiters on them, sometimes, and this is the case with all sports, sometimes the management and the coaching has to protect the players from themselves. Sometimes they have to step in because, if you feel you're good to go, Debray, then or let's just call him Brie Bella's husband to make him easily identifiable. Uh, if you're good to go, then awesome, but we're not going to let you take a brainbuster from the top rope onto a steel chair on the outside of the ring.
Yeah.
Not
Say
sure
what
if he's
you.
done that, but it feels like something he would do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Uh, I mean, say what you will about Mr. McMahon, horrible human being, but he knew business. All right, on to the next um, topic here. Let's go with Rockstar's topic of war games or traditional Survivor Series matches.
Yeah, so basically the question that I'm bringing to the table is which style match do you like better? The traditional Survivor Series match where all the competitors are at the ring in the match and then are eliminated one by one until there's only, members of it, one of the teams remaining, or the traditional war game style match to where you start off one versus one and then incrementally have rotating members from the opposing teams enter at time intervals, and then the match technically starts whenever all the competitors are in the ring, and then there can be a pinfall or submission winner. For me, I definitely feel that I do prefer the traditional Survivor Series match because I've always been more of a fan of an elimination style match, and to where, your team has to be good throughout the entire thing to be able to carry your team to the victory at the end. And even in like triple threat matches or four-way matches, I always prefer the elimination style match over the, sudden death match to where pinfall and it's over. So for me, I would go with the Survivor Series style match, even though I do love the War Games match because it's always a surprise of who's going to come out to influence the leverage.
Right. Awesome.
I have to wholeheartedly agree. Part of it's nostalgia because it's been a minute since we've properly gotten the traditional Survivor Series match at Survivor Series. But I have the same issue with War Games as a running pay-per-view for the same reason that I had issue with Hell in a Cell being a annual calendar event, is you are writing yourself into a corner that every year in this month you have to work the feuds in such a way that Hell in a Cell has to happen rather than the feuds themselves necessitating the match. Uh, War Games is a phenomenal match type. It has some great moments in it, but at the same time, there's only so many times I can see Io Shirai, as much as I love her, jumping from the top of the cage in a trash can. Uh, and it gets to the point that you're just having it be a spot fest over and over, and you're not able to tell the same stories as you would with the Survivor Series traditional format. I do love both, and I think that both absolutely have their place, but I don't think it should consistently be one year after year after year. I'm not saying it should alternate, but it should be whatever the feuds and the storylines going at the time actually justify for them to go into.
I
Completely.
do have a follow-up question after X gives his answer.
I completely understand what Austin's talking about with that one. I personally, I like the traditional Survivor Series match. Um, as Rockstar said, I prefer the elimination matches. Like my favorite match is a Royal Rumble match, and then not only that, but with my wrestling guys, and then in my own backyard federation, I did a an elimination match that's kind of like a Survivor Series match, where like we there was a bunch of people along the side of the ring, and it was a one-on-one, and yeah, the eliminate eliminate everybody to win. It was a one-on-one match, but I'm definitely going to go with traditional Survivor Series match. I think I 100% agree though. If you want a War Games match, it's got to make sense. Just like just like Hell in a Cell or even TLC, or even hell, even a ladder match or a cage match. Like it's got to make sense for the storyline. Um, but the traditional Survivor Series matches that doesn't have to make sense for a storyline. I even remember back in the day when there was every match was a traditional Survivor Series match, and then all of the heel survivors fought all of the face survivors at the end to figure out the true survivor. I think they only did that the first 2 years. But what's your follow up question, sir?
So my follow-up question then is to Austin on it. So with you saying as far as, and I agree as far as the Hell in a Cell shouldn't be the annual event, but with something like Elimination Chamber to where the winner is determined on who faces the champion that the Royal Rumble winner doesn't face at Mania each year. Are you opposed to those?
Uh, that is a very good point, and I'm not, and I think it really comes down to the match type. Is matches like the Royal Rumble, like Elimination Chamber, feel like they are more enshrined as sort of traditions. And similarly with like Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank has to be an annual thing. It's the way it's run for years, and the idea of them going a year without one just doesn't quite feel right. So I think at the end of the day, it really is just a case by case basis, given the match type, that some do work better as an annual tradition compared to others. So some, like the Royal Rumble and the Elimination Chamber match, those do feel like they work very well. And if the Elimination Chamber does uh, out outlast its welcome, I'm not opposed to a tournament or some other type of match that could culminate at a pay-per-view before Mania to determine who's going to challenge for the other title.
Well, they had
Uh,
that at one point in time. They had the King of the Ring tournament, and that was the reasoning for it.
yes, they did, and it was fantastic, and I miss King of the Ring as it used to be and not what it is now.
Yeah,
Right.
agreed on that with the King of the Ring. I feel like the King of the Ring should have been like on the same level as the Intercontinental Championship, where it is for for the future, not necessarily. Oh, you win this tournament, you get a shot at this PLE.
Yeah, it should be a method to elevate stars and give them something to actually treat with the prestige of a title, rather than becoming just kind of gimmicky. The one time that it's really worked as a silly, gimmicky award was King Booker.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I liked King Mabel.
King Mabel
And
was
then,
pretty great.
when you got to admit that
First
Stone
time.
Cold was the one who was most elevated from the King of the Ring tournament.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Like we want it to be more like when it was for Stone Cold, where it was a stepping stone, like the Intercontinental Championship. It's a stepping stone to bigger and better.
And the point that I'll make with Stone Cold is his crowning moment that really showed that he would crowning moment that was unintentional. His moment that really showed this guy is a main eventer. This guy is worthy of the TV time was his win at King of the Ring. That's the day that Austin 316 was born. But at the same time, being King of the Ring did absolutely nothing for him. It feels like it was just a it was the moment rather than the actual the title or the win itself that did it for him. And that's something that WWE has always been best at, is creating these moments.
Yeah, to me, because for me, that was a huge transition for Austin because I was an Austin fan in WCW with him and Brian Pillman, the Hollywood Blondes, like, managed by none other than Paulie Dangerously. And he had impressed me. And then once he did make the jump to WWE as the ringmaster, that gimmick did not spark me at all until after he won the tournament. And that's whenever it felt like they gave him control of his character and let him be Stone Cold and kicked off essentially the Attitude Era at that point. Even though it was a couple of weeks or a month or so after that that the actual push took place, that was uh the nebula of it. That was the starting moment.
I mean, the push really took place after WrestleMania 13, I want to say, when it was him versus Bret Hart. That's when the push really took off. However,
Is that the one
it
where he submitted while bleeding out on them or passed out
passed out
and
while bleeding.
lost?
It was
That was the
the
double
double,
turn.
yeah, the double
Yeah.
turn, technically. But as far as like Austin coming in as the ringmaster, I didn't know I didn't know him in WCW. I was excited to see somebody new because I was a big Million Dollar Man fan. But the ringmaster was kind of terrible. So I'll be honest, the ringmaster was terrible. I did read
Yeah,
his
there
book
was there
though.
was no definition.
I did read his book though, and he basically went up to Vince and he was like, "I need this changed because the ringmaster sucks." And Vince was like, "Oh, come up with a new name, and we'll go from there." And then I think Deborah was his wife at the time. She ended up accidentally coming up with Stone Cold. But on to the last topic: Randy Moss or Jerry Rice. Now, this is my topic. This is the topic that I picked, but I want to go last on this one. So, who would like to go first?
I'll take the reins on this one. For me, it's definitely a very tight battle, but as far as just personal opinion goes, I'd have to go with Jerry Rice. I think that Jerry Rice had, better quarterbacks. He had better tools feeding to him. Jerry Rice got to take passes from one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, being Joe Montana, as well as Steve Young. And he just, the gun that was shooting at him was better than anything that was available at that time, other than Dan Marino possibly could be thrown up in the Montana echelon, or that was before Aikman's time, so you can't even count that. But yeah, Joe Montana was one of my favorite quarterbacks, so I might be a little bit impartial by picking Jerry Rice on that.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
I have to concur and go with Jerry Rice. Randy Moss is a generational talent. He did so much to sort of carve out what a receiver could be in his era. However, my biggest points with choosing Rice over Moss don't really have to do with the on field product, they have to do with the off the field product. And that goes down to the fact that wherever Rice went for his 15-year stint in San Francisco or his time on the Raiders or the Seahawks, the man was a consistent presence where he elevated every team that he was on. He had good talent around him, but he also made the team better, both on and off the field. For Moss, the man's talent could not be denied, and I believe that on an actual physical level and a level of potential, I think that Moss is the superior receiver, but it was the off the field issues, the lack of dedication, the drama in and out of the locker room with Moss that really dragged him down. If the man had the same amount of discipline and just a focus on ball that Rice had, I think he would have surpassed Rice in the GOAT conversation and become much more respected, not that he's not already incredibly well respected, as a one of the greatest receivers of all time.
Oh, absolutely. These are probably the top two in anybody's list. I can almost guarantee that. The top two in anybody's list. I personally am actually going to go with Moss, though, for a few reasons. Here's my argument for this. As as you said, Rockstar, the echelon, the level of talent that throwing to him. Randy Moss had arguably the greatest of all time in Tom Brady, but he also had people like Randall Cunningham, whoever he had on the 49ers, whoever he had on the Raiders,
I was gonna
and
say,
Jerry Rice.
did Moss have any of Warren Moon's action with the Vikings?
No,
No? Okay.
no. Warren Moon was closer to Jerry Rice than
Or,
him.
yeah.
I mean, Warren Moon might have thrown Jerry Rice on the Seahawks, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. But Jerry Rice had two of the top five quarterbacks in Joe Montana. I almost said Joe Burrow. Joe Montana and Steve Young. He had two of the greatest of all time throwing to him. And I mean, if you look at just the averages, Randy Moss had a 15.6 yard per carry average, um, yards after catch actually average. Uh, Rice had 14.8. So Moss had a little bit more, but Jerry Rice played for 21 seasons. Moss played for only 14. And like longevity wise, yeah, Jerry Rice absolutely the best. Jerry Rice still absolutely one of the top two. My opinion, number two now because of if Randy Moss played 21 seasons like Jerry Rice did, his stats would be through the roof. The only thing that makes Jerry Rice better is he had a better team around him. Um, he has three, four Super Bowl rings, somewhere around that. But here's my biggest argument: you can moss somebody, you can't Rice them.
That is a pretty great argument, and that kind of borrows off of what I was saying. That it comes down to the potential that Moss, when it comes to the physical characteristics, when it comes to the explosiveness, he had the potential statistically to surpass Rice easily, but it was partially the Dante Culpeppers that he was surrounding himself with in, aside from the Bradys that dragged him down at times. But you have to wonder if he had had, a 15-year stint on his team, be it the Vikings or the Patriots or whoever, would he have had the same stability and longevity? And if he had had the same stability and longevity as Rice had, where would he have ended up?
Right. I think that's my biggest argument is basically the longevity of Jerry Rice. He 7 more seasons, and let's see, his total yards was 6,000 more, 7,000 more. So
I
they
don't know.
were
To
right
me,
on
the
each other.
longevity just sort of goes through and argues towards my point that, he was able to go 21 seasons as opposed to only going 14. He could have
But when
probably retired at 14 seasons and still set records.
valid, he would have, yeah, because he had beaten Steve Lodgen back then around that time era. But yeah, it's very good arguments all around. Obviously, me personally, I say Rice. I say Moss. You guys say Rice. We all agree on Survivor Series over War Games, especially for the PLE. Actually, I have one more thing to say about that one. Um, as far as storyline goes, I would like to see both happen at a Survivor Series. Have the bigger storylines be the War Games, and have the rest of them be um, traditional Survivor Series matches.
To me, one of the problems with that though is then you'll end up like you did in what was it? Was it 97 or 98? Whenever they had built up the Survivor Series of Jerry Lawler and his Knights versus whatever the face team was, and then Lawler ended up having to step out due to legal reasonings, and they tossed Shawn Michael in the mix, but instead of switching the Knights in anything that had to do, it could have been Shawn's Sexy Boys and it would have been better than Shawn Michaels and the Knights of the Round Table or whatever they were called versus
See,
the
it would
faces.
that would have been even that still would have gone fine with Shawn Michaels and the Knights if they kept the rest of the storyline going, where the Knights were supposed to be unmasked as they were eliminated. So we saw who Bret Hart was going to face next.
Right.
Uh, Brother, I need to sleep. That'll be a 12-hour show if we get both match types at one show. It'd have to be a two-nighter,
Well,
Uh,
but no,
which
I
I'm not
understand with what
hardly
X
opposed
was
to.
saying as far as if you have one War Games match
yeah,
where it has been built like they did with NXT, and whenever Steve Regal introduced War Games into NXT after it had been forgotten about for 16, 17 years, it was a match that needed the cage. That's like nowadays, I even think that there's Hell in a Cell or cage matches or no DQ matches or the 15 million names they have for no DQ matches, Chicago Street Fight, Holiday, Haphazard Massacre, whatever. It's just, it's inane that some of them don't need it. And especially like whenever they just bring blood into them, bring color into a match to go through and have color, unless your name's John Moxley.
yeah, but don't
I
make it.
will say it is incredibly funny to see that they just add the name of whatever city they're in to the front of the street fight. Like coming up tonight, a Topeka street fight. It's gonna be brutal.
Yeah,
Or Topeka Tornado Tag.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Don't get me wrong. I love tornado tags. I think they need to do them more often. However, don't name them after the city. Don't name
right.
it Texas Tornado Tag either. The Texas Tornado is no longer wrestling.
I was gonna say bring Carrie back.
You
Uh,
see, that's the nice thing about a good old Donnybrook is you can have a good old Donnybrook anywhere.
agreed.
Yeah, or a
And
shillelagh on a pole match.
they do make the Donnybrook a little different with the beer barrels or the whiskey barrels, whichever it is. At least
That
they
is
make
true.
that
If
one
you do a
different.
show in Utah, it can be water barrels.
Nah, that's not dry. But we will see y'all next week for episode 2, where we may or may not have a fourth person. And
Let me
uh,
throw my quick plug in. Make sure to check out Rockstar CC Nonsense on YouTube. I'll be posting videos every once in a while, openings. You get to see my ugly mug on there, and yeah, just some good times.
I will be uh, collabing with him on this video.
I can poke you in the ear. I can poke you in the ear.
Not on my screen. You're poking Austin on my screen.
I don't have anything to plug, but I'll just say, let us know what you think in the comments below. The usual, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what subjects you want us to tackle in our next episode.
That's a great plug for us. And we'll see you in the next one.
Deuces.